the Bhagavad Gita. Dancing with Shiva. The Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Books. Words. Coming a time we're gonna get rid of language altogether, because the more we talk, the more we run into somebody that doesn't agree with what we have to say. And why should we question what we have to say? Because somebody else that might have been around can see what you're saying and say, yeah, I understand what you're going through. I've gone through that myself. But there's something more. And we say, yeah! This is all I need to know. Back off! 6 feet. 6 years. 6 dozen chicken ears. And a dirty dog's ears. But the books. The Bhagavad Shiva. I realize we read things we enjoy. My father is a reader, but he would never possibly read anything that can't help him in his everyday life. And that's sensible. If you don't have time for anything more than that, but what's the point? Once you reach a point that you know everything in your daily life, why not go out there and see what somebody else has to say? What is the source of this catechism? I didn't do that on purpose. What we find is that we read things that we can relate to. Andy Henyon gave me the book The Shipping News once by E. Annie Proulx. And I had started reading in the Army. I always felt like I've got more things to do than read. And once I was broke, once the time came that I was broke, every 2 weeks when it was time to get paid in the Army, I was like, I'm drinking it all up, which didn't bother me at all, but I didn't have enough to drink up all the way through. So I realized, Scomp turned me on to Stephen King or Dean Koontz, and I just, easy reading, things that we like, things that we can spend time with, and imagine. We imagine. That's why you're not supposed to be looking at me. You're supposed to hear me on the radio. You're supposed to remember how I was on the radio in your mind. Because we all make up images for things that we cannot see. And that's problem solving. It's wiring things in your mind. What's a person look like? Based on who I know what. And suddenly it's opening up spaces in your mind when you run into problems that it's got nothing to do with books. It's got nothing to do with anything else. You realize, I know how to solve it, because you're connecting things. Your brain is wiring new networks. And so Andy Henyon gives me this book by E. Annie Proulx, The Shipping News. They made a movie about it with Kevin Spacey, which you know, I always thought he was a good actor, but he sucked in that. He was not Coyle. He was not the man. It was about a man who knew nothing. And he'd been sitting there, and he could write some things every once in a while. He got a job back in his old homeland, and he would write for the paper, the shipping news. The ships come in, he'd write a story about it in a daily paper. Not a big paper, nobody was reading it anywhere but that town. And throughout the process of it, it tells how, oh no, he's got to get on a roof. He's got to climb a ladder. He's never been up one of those, and he's like, ah! And after the first few where he's like, ah! You know, if he died on the first few, that would be reason to believe that he was right to be afraid. However, few of us rarely do. You just get up there and you're careful, pop, 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 pop. And so he shingled his roof, he learned how to do this, he learned how to do his little boat, all these little things. In the story, I'm reading this story that Andy Henning gave me, and I'm like, it's fantastic. I could relate completely. And that's what it is about reading. I could relate to the stories he was telling, and I think that may be why I like the story more than other people. And that's it. You read things you can relate to, and look at the stuff we look on the damn internet every day. This shit pops up, you look at it, and we've reached the point in the first 2 minutes, you're like, I've seen everything I had to see. It's like they taught us with the newspaper in elementary school when I was a kid. You read the headline and the first paragraph, maybe down to the first page, says continued on page 7. No reason to read page 7. You got everything you needed here. And so that's how we read. But we do enjoy things that relate to us. And if we run across things that we don't understand, all you got to do is look it up a little bit. It's the whole thing about not being good at something and not liking it. I don't like that. Why? Oh, it sucks. But inside you're saying, because I'm not good at it. But if you get good at it, you will enjoy it. You enjoy the evolution of yourself. That's what people don't let on. They don't ever think of an evolution of themselves because we're taught we are who we are and that's all we are. Oh, there's so much more. And so I took the shipping news and I gave it to Leah Paradiso, who is a listener of mine, who called, and I met her and we were friends, and we were more, and then we were friends again, and we've always been friends. And in that process, it comes up with what happens in a video I just saw about the Bhagavad, whatever the hell it is. Bhagavad. Yeah. I saw something just now saying how a guy gave a book to his kid. Guy was a billionaire. The kid's like, I want a Ferrari for my graduation. And he said, fuck you. He give him the Bhagavad, the damn thing, this book. And catechism. Catechism is about learning. Who were the early Kalisa preceptors? I don't know. But he threw it down and left, and he said, I turn you away, like that Into the Wild kid who cut up his credit cards and said, fuck the family money, knowing he could always come back. And he went out to Alaska, lived in a bus, and ate bad food because he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. He thought he was a free spirit. You can't be a free spirit if you owe your soul to education. You leave the education out on what you're going to do. You're not free anymore. That whole thing can tear you down in a minute. And so then he comes back and he says, Baba. That's the same word in Hindi for father as it is in Chinese. Baba, as it is in Islam, Arabic. Baba. Cultural cultural. He comes back and he says, I'm sorry. He must have been hungry. It's like the prodigal son story, but told in a different way. And his mother's like, your father died at 9 this morning. And he's like, what? And she says, yeah, he couldn't stand that you turned on the faith and all that. And he walked into the room and he looks and he pulls this book off the shelf and he opens it up. I wonder if there's a $20 bill in here. No, nothing. He opens it up and there's the damn title to the Ferrari that he wanted for his graduation. If he'd only picked up the book. And there it is. We go back to Leah Paradiso. I gave her that book for her birthday one year. And in it, because I held that shipping news, E.N.E. Pro, because I held it so important. We need to be able to see the things we could do and understand why we don't like the story because we don't know how to do them. All you got to do is go learn how to roof something and you will be able to respect what that man went through. And now you've got a skill. It's like having a Down syndrome kid and tattooing him the hell out of him. And so when he turns 18, you sell him to the circus as the strong boy, the tattooed strong boy. There are things that you have to be able to see there may be something more. And I saw her years later. She invited me to a birthday party again. And, you know, of course, we weren't together. But we were still friends. And I said, did you ever read that book? And she's like, oh, no, never got around to it. And I said, is it on the shelf? She said, no, I think it just disappeared. I'm like, there it is. I feel like the father from that Bhagavad Gita or whatever. And I gotta beat him, baby. I felt like that guy, like the father. Only I didn't die. I ran off into the woods and disappeared. But I had a $20 bill I pitched in there. I actually gave her a gift. $20 doesn't sound like much, but in about 2001, early, right there, turn of the century, whatever you call it, $20 would have been a good gift. And it wouldn't have been payment for her reading it. It would have been a bonus to the things she would have been able to take out of that book. So these stories, before I've ever heard them I've been doing them, and I'm trying to share them. Just read something. Read something that you don't like. If you read something that you don't like and you just can't make amends with it, fantastic. It means you've run across something that doesn't mean a damn thing to you. Better to find out you don't like it than to find out, wow, could have been the best thing I ever had and I missed it.